The city of Zalera bustled with life, its towering structures shimmering with a metallic glow under the twin suns. As the human delegation made their way through the crowded streets, their appearance stirred whispers and cautious stares from the local Zalarians. Among the onlookers, Solara stood slightly apart, her keen eyes tracking their every move with an academic's curiosity. "Look at them, Solara," muttered Joran, her fellow scholar and friend, his voice laced with disdain. "They walk as if they own the place." Solara frowned slightly, her gaze still fixed on the newcomers. "They're just different, Joran, not lesser. Perhaps there's more to them than our preconceptions." As they spoke, one of the humans, a tall man with striking features and a calm demeanor, accidentally bumped into a Zalarian merchant. The contents of the merchant's cart clattered to the ground, drawing a hostile crowd. "I'm very sorry. Let me help you with that," the human said, bending down to gather the scattered items. His name was Tom, and his voice carried a genuine concern that seemed to soften some of the surrounding tension. The merchant sneered, refusing Tom's help. "Keep your hands to yourself, human." Tom stood upright, his face a mask of regret. "I apologize, it was not my intention to cause a scene." Beside him, another human, a younger man named Eric, joined in trying to ease the situation. Solara's curiosity got the better of her. She stepped forward, her approach catching Tom's attention. "Perhaps I can assist in resolving this," she offered, her voice calm and diplomatic. Joran grabbed her arm, hissing, "What are you doing?" "They're trouble." Ignoring Joran, Solara addressed the merchant. "Sir, he has apologized and is trying to make amends. Let us not escalate this further." Her authoritative tone drew nods from some of the onlookers. Grudgingly, the merchant began picking up his goods, and Tom helped, handing him items cautiously. Solara watched, her expression thoughtful. "Thank you for stepping in," Tom said, turning to Solara once the situation calmed. "I'm Tom, and this is Eric. We certainly didn't mean to start our visit with a conflict." "I'm Solara," she replied, her voice neutral yet friendly. "Zalera is a place of learning and understanding. It's only right to help when misunderstandings occur." Eric, who had been silent until now, chimed in with a warm smile. "It's our first time on Zalera. We hope to learn much from your people." Joran, still uneasy, muttered to Solara, "Be careful, Solara. They're not like us." Solara nodded at Joran's warning but responded to Tom and Eric. "Perhaps you would appreciate a guide? Zalera can be quite overwhelming to newcomers." "That would be great," Tom replied, his eyes grateful. "We have much to learn from each other, I believe." As the group started walking towards the heart of the city, Solara shared insights about Zalarian culture and history. Tom and Eric listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that bridged the gap between curiosity and respect. "Your city is remarkable," Eric commented, looking around in awe. "It is," Solara agreed, a hint of pride in her voice. "And it's made richer today by learning about those who are different from us." As they delved deeper into the city, the initial tension gave way to a burgeoning dialogue, setting the stage for a day that would challenge many of Solara's preconceived notions about humans. Chapter 2. The Incident. The cultural exchange event was in full swing, held in Zalera's Grand Plaza under the open sky. The area buzzed with a mix of Zalarian and human delegates, each group showcasing aspects of their culture through music, art, and technology. Tom and Eric were particularly taken with the holographic art installations that depicted Zalarian historical events in vivid 3D. Tom, carrying a small model of a human spacecraft, offered it to a group of Zalarian children who watched with wide-eyed wonder. "This is a model of the craft that brought us here. You see, it flies through space across vast distances," he explained, his hands gently guiding the model in a slow arc. Nearby, Solara and a senior human diplomat named Michael observed the interaction. "Your people seem genuinely interested in sharing," Solara noted, impressed by the gentle way Tom interacted with the curious children. Michael smiled, watching his colleague. "We believe in learning from each other, Solara. What brings us together today is a shared curiosity and a mutual respect." As they spoke, a loud disagreement broke out at the technology booth. Eric, who had been demonstrating a piece of human technology, found himself in a heated debate with a Zalarian scientist named Draven. "You handle it all wrong. This is delicate equipment, not some toy to be manhandled," Draven accused, his tone sharp and unforgiving. Eric's face flushed with embarrassment. "I apologize if I seemed careless. I assure you, we treat our technology with the utmost respect." Tom, hearing the commotion, excused himself from the children and hurried over, with Solara and Michael following closely behind. "What seems to be the problem here?" Tom asked, his voice calm but firm. Draven pointed a finger at Eric. "Your assistant here does not understand the intricacies of our tools. This is why we hesitate to share more sensitive information." Tom turned to Eric, who looked down, upset. Addressing Draven, Tom said, "I assure you, any misunderstanding was not intentional. Eric is one of our best. Perhaps a more thorough explanation of your equipment would prevent further confusion." Draven looked skeptical, but Solara stepped in. "Draven, perhaps this is an opportunity for deeper collaboration. We might find human methodologies enlightening." Draven paused, considering her words, then nodded stiffly. "Very well. I will demonstrate once more." The demonstration resumed, with Draven explaining more carefully and Eric following along with great attention. The crowd that had gathered watched intently as both parties worked to overcome the misunderstanding. After the situation was defused, Michael leaned in to speak quietly to Solara. "These events are crucial for building trust. It's not just about showcasing technology, but how we handle differences and misunderstandings." Solara nodded, her gaze shifting between the human delegates and her own people. "It's a learning process for us all. Today has shown both the potential for great collaboration and the pitfalls of miscommunication." As the event continued, Tom and Solara walked together, discussing the various displays and the reactions from both communities. "It's fascinating," Tom mused, "how two such different cultures can find common ground, yet also be so quick to judge." "Yes," Solara agreed, "but each moment like this teaches us more about each other. And perhaps, in understanding the small things, we lay the groundwork for tackling the bigger challenges together." Their conversation deepened, with both expressing hopes that the day's events would lead to a more profound understanding and lasting partnerships. The atmosphere slowly shifted back to one of celebration and curiosity, the earlier conflict fading into the background as the event drew to a close under Zalara's starlit sky. Chapter 3: Unlikely Allies. The days following the cultural exchange were filled with joint seminars and collaborative workshops, as the Zalarians and humans sought to deepen their understanding of each other's technologies and philosophies. Tom and Solara found themselves paired more frequently, driven by a mutual curiosity and the easy rapport they had established. One afternoon, they attended a workshop focused on environmental sustainability, a subject both Zalarians and humans were passionately invested in. As they worked alongside each other, sharing data and insights, Tom introduced Solara to another human colleague, Dr. Henry Lane, an expert in ecological engineering. Dr. Lane greeted Solara with a warm handshake. "It's a pleasure to meet someone so involved in her world's preservation efforts. Tom has told me a great deal about your initiatives." Solara smiled, appreciative of the compliment. "Thank you, Dr. Lane. We have much to learn from each other. Your techniques for bioremediation are quite advanced." The three of them, along with a small group of Zalarian environmentalists, delved into discussions about soil restoration and water purification. They exchanged ideas over digital tablets, showing diagrams and data charts, excitedly pointing out possibilities for integration. "I think there's potential for a pilot project here," suggested Tom, pointing to a hybrid model of Zalarian and human technology on his screen. "If we combine our bioadaptive algorithms with your phytoremediation techniques, we might increase efficiency by over 40%. "That sounds promising," agreed a Zalarian scientist named Marek. "I'll bring this up with the council. Perhaps we can set up a test site by the Gara River." As the session progressed, Eric joined the group, adding his expertise in mechanical systems to help address the challenge of integrating human machinery with Zalarian ecological frameworks. Together, they sketched out a blueprint that was both innovative and respectful of Zalera's delicate ecosystems. Later, as they took a break from the intense brainstorming, Solara led Tom and Eric on a short walk through a nearby botanical garden to relax and unwind. The garden was a lush expanse of exotic plants and shimmering water features, designed to emulate Zalera's diverse biomes. "This place is beautiful," remarked Tom, as they strolled along a path lined with bioluminescent flowers. "It's amazing how your people have managed to cultivate such diversity in one place." Solara nodded, pleased. "It represents the essence of Zalera, unity in diversity. Much like what we're trying to achieve with our collaborations." Eric, who had been quietly observing the flora, added, "It's inspiring. Back on Earth, we're still learning how to balance our technological advancements with nature's needs." As they paused by a serene pond, Tom reflected on the progress they had made. "Today was a good day. It feels like we're really starting to make a difference, not just for our own people, but for each other." Solara looked at him, her eyes thoughtful. "It's strange, isn't it? A few weeks ago, we were strangers from different worlds. And now here we are, working together, sharing hopes for a better future." "Yes," Tom agreed. "It's more than just an exchange of ideas. It's about building trust, understanding, and maybe friendship." Their conversation lingered on the potential of their joint efforts, the setting sun casting a warm glow over the tranquil garden. The day's successes had fostered a sense of camaraderie among the group, and as they returned to the workshop, they felt a renewed commitment to their shared mission. This newfound alliance was not just beneficial in a professional sense. It was a testament to the power of open minds and willing hearts working in harmony. As the stars began to appear in the sky above, the seeds of change were already taking root, promising a fertile ground for future endeavors between humans and Zalarians. Chapter 4: A Forbidden Bond. The Zalarian Council's chamber buzzed with heated discussion, holographic data displays casting pale blue light across the room. Representatives debated how to handle the increasing collaboration between their kind and the humans, focusing in particular on the growing influence of Tom and Eric. Some council members viewed the cooperation as promising, while others saw it as a dangerous erosion of tradition. Solara and Tom stood at the edge of the room, listening quietly. Tom turned to her, his voice a low murmur. "Your people seem divided." "They've always been cautious," Solara replied, her brow furrowed. "And now, with so much change happening so quickly, it's easy for fear to spread." Eric joined them, glancing over his shoulder. "They're not the only ones. Some of our own team back on the ship are starting to get cold feet about all this. They think we're moving too fast." "Are they wrong?" Solara asked softly. Eric shrugged. "I don't think so. But the problem is when fear starts shaping decisions instead of facts. That's when things go sideways." Solara looked back at the council members, her shoulders tense. "I don't want to lose what we've built so far. It may be fragile, but it's worth preserving." Tom put a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Then we keep going, one step at a time." Later that evening, the three of them walked through a quiet park outside the council hall. The path was lined with luminescent trees, their branches glowing faintly in the dark. The air was cool and filled with the soft hum of insect-like creatures that flitted through the shadows. "This place is beautiful," Eric said, taking in the peaceful surroundings. "It's like something out of a dream." Solara smiled faintly. "It's one of my favorite spots. I come here when I need to think." Tom stepped ahead, turning to face them both. "I can see why. Feels different here. Calmer." They walked on in companionable silence until they reached a small clearing. A bench sat beneath a particularly radiant tree, its leaves glowing like captured starlight. Solara gestured for them to sit. As they settled down, Tom leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "So what do we do if the council decides to shut this down?" "We don't give up," Eric replied firmly. "We've come too far to turn back now." Solara hesitated, her gaze fixed on the glowing leaves above them. "It's not just about convincing the council. It's about convincing the people. If they see that we can work together, if they see the results of our efforts, they might start to believe. Tom nodded. Then we focus on the work. We show them what's possible. And we stay honest. No shortcuts, no tricks, just solid results. A cool breeze passed through the clearing, rustling the leaves. Solara turned to Tom, her expression unreadable. Why do you believe in this so much? Why do you care? Tom met her gaze, his voice steady. Because I've seen what happens when people stop talking to each other. I've seen what we lose when we let fear win. This, he gestured to the park, the glowing trees, the faint hum of life all around them. This is worth fighting for, even if it's hard. Solara studied him for a long moment, then looked down at her hands. You humans, you're not what I expected. Neither are you, Tom said quietly, a small smile tugging at his lips. Eric leaned back, looking up at the glowing canopy. You know, if you'd told me a few months ago that I'd be sitting here with a Zolarian and actually enjoying myself, I'd have called you crazy. Solara laughed softly. And if you'd told me I'd be sitting here with two humans and feeling hopeful, I wouldn't have believed it either. They shared a light-hearted chuckle, the tension of the day slowly fading. It was a small moment, but it felt significant. A reminder that even in the midst of uncertainty, connections could be formed, trust could grow, and something new could take root. As they made their way back toward the city, the faint glow of the trees fading behind them, they felt a quiet determination to keep moving forward, no matter the challenges ahead. Chapter 5: Tensions Rise. Solara's quarters were quiet, save for the soft hum of Zolara's ambient energy fields. She sat cross-legged on a floor cushion, staring at a holographic message from her parents. The words hovered in the air, sharp and unyielding. Your actions are bringing shame to our family, her mother had said, her expression a mixture of disappointment and anger, associating so closely with humans. Do you even realize the consequences of your behavior? Solara reached out and waved her hand, dismissing the message. She couldn't listen to it again. The weight of her family's disapproval had been crushing her for days now, and the strain was starting to show. She hadn't slept well in weeks. A knock at her door startled her out of her thoughts. She hesitated, then called, "Enter." The door slid open, revealing Tom. His usual calm expression was tinged with concern. "You haven't been showing up to the joint sessions," he said gently, stepping into the room. "I know," Solara admitted, brushing a strand of her shimmering silver hair behind her ear. "I've been dealing with some personal matters." "Is it your family?" Tom guessed, sitting down opposite her. "Eric mentioned you seemed off after that last council meeting." Solara sighed, meeting his gaze. "They don't understand what I'm doing. To them, humans are still beasts, uncivilized. My mother believes I'm throwing away everything our family has worked for." Tom frowned. "That's not fair. You've been working harder than anyone to make this collaboration succeed. Fairness isn't the issue. They care about reputation, tradition. In their eyes, I'm betraying my own kind," Solara said quietly, her voice heavy with frustration. Tom leaned back, crossing his arms. "Well, if they can't see what you're trying to accomplish, that's their loss. You've done more to bridge the gap between our species than anyone I know." Solara tilted her head slightly, a small, tired smile appearing on her lips. "You're surprisingly supportive for someone who's been called a beast." "I've been called worse," Tom said with a wry grin. "Besides, you're not the only one facing pushback. Some of my own crew are questioning why I'm spending so much time with Zolarians. They think I'm losing sight of my duty." "What do you tell them?" Solara asked. "The truth," Tom replied, "that you've taught me more about collaboration and understanding in a few weeks than I've learned in years. That working with you makes me better at what I do." Solara's smile grew, and for the first time that day, she felt a flicker of relief. "You're not just saying that to make me feel better, are you?" "No," Tom said earnestly. "I mean every word, and I know Eric feels the same. He told me yesterday that you have a way of making us think differently, more creatively." At that moment, Eric walked in, a datapad tucked under his arm. "Am I interrupting?" he asked, glancing between them. Not at all, Solara said, gesturing for him to join them. Eric sat down, setting the datapad on the floor between them. I've been working on that proposal for the Joint Research Lab, but we're going to need someone to present it to the council. Solara hesitated. I'm not sure I'm the right person for that. The council already has doubts about me. You're the best person for it, Eric countered. You've been involved in every step of the project. You understand both sides better than anyone. And you have our support, Tom added. You won't be standing alone. Solara looked at them, the determination in their expressions giving her a renewed sense of purpose. All right, she said, her voice steady. I'll do it. I'll present the proposal to the council. Eric nodded, a small smile of encouragement on his face. You'll be great. Tom placed a hand on her shoulder, a reassuring gesture. And if they don't see it right away, we'll keep pushing. Together. As the three of them began discussing the details of the proposal, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The heavy tension that had hung over Solara seemed to lighten, replaced by a growing sense of camaraderie and resolve. For the first time in days, she felt a spark of hope. Chapter 6. Crossroads. The quiet hum of Zalera's central hub was broken only by the occasional low beep of a data console. Solara stood near the observation deck, gazing out at the glowing expanse of the city's crystalline skyline. She could see her reflection in the glass, her expression tense, her hands clasped in front of her. Tom and Eric approached from behind, their footsteps light. Eric carried a small pack slung over his shoulder, while Tom wore his usual calm, determined look. He stopped beside her, following her gaze out the window. I heard the council's decision, Tom said after a moment. Solara's shoulders tightened. They want us to end the project. They think it's too dangerous to continue working with humans. Her voice was low, her words measured, but Tom could hear the frustration beneath them. We'll figure something out, Eric said. He set his pack down and leaned against the glass. They might not want to admit it, but the progress we've made is real. We're already proving we can work together. They don't see it that way, Solara replied. All they see is risk. The risk of losing control. The risk of change. Tom turned toward her, his voice steady. Then we'll just have to show them what they stand to lose by shutting us down. She turned her head slightly, her silver hair catching the light. What do you mean? I mean, we don't stop, Tom said simply. We keep working. Quietly if we have to. We keep refining the project, gathering data, building results. If we can show them undeniable success, they'll have to reconsider. Eric nodded. We've got allies, even if they're not speaking up yet. Marek's still on our side. A few others have hinted they'd support us if we had more evidence. Solara frowned, her mind racing. So you're suggesting we go behind the council's back? Not behind their back, Tom said firmly. We're not hiding. We're just continuing. If they come around, great. If they don't, at least we'll have something tangible to show for our efforts. She hesitated. The idea of defying the council, even indirectly, went against everything she'd been taught. But as she looked at Tom and Eric, both of them willing to put their careers and reputations on the line, she felt a strange mixture of guilt and resolve. This isn't just about me, she said softly. If I go along with this, if we fail, it could ruin you too. We've already decided, Eric said, his tone lighter. Besides, this isn't about failure. It's about keeping the progress we've made alive. Tom took a step closer to her, his voice lowering. Solara, you've done more to make this collaboration work than anyone else. If you walk away now, we lose more than just a project. We lose the chance to change things. Don't let fear stop you from doing what's right. She searched his face for a moment, seeing only sincerity and determination. Finally, she nodded. All right, we keep going. Over the following weeks, they worked in relative quiet. Meetings were held in out-of-the-way corners of the central hub. Documents and data files passed through secure channels. Marek and a handful of other Zalarian researchers provided covert assistance, while Eric and Tom kept the human team on track. Late one evening, the three of them sat in a small, dimly lit office, reviewing the latest data. The progress was undeniable. Key components of the project were outperforming initial expectations, and their hybrid model was proving more efficient than either species' individual systems. "This is it," Eric said, tapping the screen. "If we can get this implementation ready, it'll be hard for anyone to argue against the results." Solara rubbed her temples, exhaustion starting to creep in. "We'll need more time. A week, maybe 2, to finish the final analysis." "We'll get it done," Tom assured her. He leaned forward, his voice firm. "No matter how long it takes." She looked at him, grateful for his unwavering support. "I don't know what I would have done without you too." Eric smiled, sitting back in his chair. "What? You mean you wouldn't have been able to handle all this on your own?" "No," Solara said, managing a faint smile of her own. "But having you here, it reminds me that I'm not alone in this." Tom placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch reassuring. "You're never alone in this. We're in it together." The words settled between them, carrying more weight than any of them expected. Solara felt her resolve strengthen. They were at a crossroads, but they were facing it as a team. Whatever came next, they would meet it head-on. Chapter 7: The Resolution. The sun hung low in the Zalarian sky, casting long shadows across the crystal streets. The city's usual bustle had quieted, as if the population collectively held its breath. Solara walked quickly down the nearly empty avenue, a heavy satchel slung over her shoulder. She glanced over her shoulder, scanning the intersections behind her. "Are you sure no one followed you?" Eric's voice crackled over her communicator. "No one's followed me," Solara said quietly, slipping into a side alley. "What about you two?" Tom's double-checking the data. "Everything's set," Eric replied. "You've got the last piece we need. Just hurry." Solara nodded, even though Eric couldn't see her. "I'm on my way." She ducked into a narrow passage that led toward the outskirts of the city. The farther she went, the less familiar her surroundings became. Finally, she emerged into a quiet industrial district, the hum of machinery echoing faintly. A warehouse loomed ahead, its large, unassuming doors hiding the final remnants of their project. She approached cautiously and tapped a code into the access panel. Inside, Tom and Eric were waiting. Tom stood over a console, his brow furrowed in concentration. Eric was leaning against a support beam, keeping watch. "You made it," Eric said with a relieved smile as she stepped inside. "What's the status?" Solara set the satchel on a nearby table, pulling out a series of data modules. "These contain the final algorithms. Once we load them, the model will be complete." Tom glanced up. "Good timing. The system's ready." Solara handed him one of the modules. "You take care of this one. I'll handle the calibration on my end." "Got it," Tom said, slotting the module into the console. He began entering commands, his focus sharp. Eric approached Solara as she worked. "How's the council handling all this?" "They're divided," Solara said without looking up. "Some are calling for a full shutdown, but a few are pushing back. They see the potential." "Well, they won't be able to deny it once they see what we've accomplished," Eric said. "This will speak for itself." Solara paused, meeting Eric's gaze. "And if it doesn't? If they still refuse to listen?" Eric shrugged. "Then we keep pushing. The evidence is on our side. They'll have to come around eventually." "Almost there," Tom called from across the room. "Just a few more adjustments." Solara returned her attention to the interface in front of her. The system's holographic display showed intricate patterns of data merging into a cohesive structure. It was the culmination of weeks of covert work, combining Zalarian and human approaches into something new, something better than either had on their own. "We're online," Tom announced. Eric clapped his hands together. "Finally. Now what?" "Now we run the full simulation," Solara said. "If it succeeds, we'll have the proof we need." Tom initiated the simulation, and the three of them watched as the system processed the data. The holographic display pulsed and shifted, the algorithms weaving together seamlessly. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours, until finally, a soft chime indicated the simulation's completion. Results are in, Tom said, leaning closer to the display. We've done it. Efficiency levels are higher than we projected. Environmental impact is minimal. Everything's within acceptable parameters, Solara confirmed, her voice tinged with disbelief. It works. Eric let out a low whistle. You know what this means, right? They can't ignore us anymore. Solara closed her eyes briefly, relief washing over her. We've proven it can be done. Now we just need them to accept it. Tom turned to her, his expression serious. Solara, this is your moment. You're the one they'll listen to. We'll back you up, but you have to present the results. She hesitated. The thought of standing before the council, facing their scrutiny and skepticism, filled her with apprehension. But as she looked at Tom and Eric, both of them steady, unwavering, she found the courage she needed. All right, she said. Let's do it. Tom reached out and placed a hand on her shoulder. You've got this. And if anyone gives you trouble, just tell them to talk to us. Eric grinned. Yeah, we'll handle the tough questions. Solara allowed herself a small smile. Thank you. Both of you. The three of them stood together, their shared determination solidifying their resolve. The project wasn't just a collection of data and algorithms anymore. It was a symbol of what could be achieved when they worked together. Solara's heart beat faster as she prepared to take the next step, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it as a team. Chapter 8, New Beginnings. Solara stood at the edge of the observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of space. The Zalarian Council had finally agreed to allow the project to move forward, albeit reluctantly. Her presentation, supported by Tom and Eric's hard evidence and persuasive reasoning, had swayed enough of the doubters to tip the scales. The council chambers had been tense, filled with murmurs and skeptical glances. Solara had felt the weight of her people's traditions pressing down on her, but she'd pressed on, outlining the benefits of the human-Zalarian collaboration. Tom and Eric had spoken as well, answering questions with straightforward honesty and laying out the undeniable success of their work. Now, the project's continuation meant leaving Zalera and taking their joint model off-world to be implemented on a planetary scale. It was a bold step, one that symbolized not just a new approach to technology, but a profound shift in how the two species viewed each other. Tom joined her on the deck, his steps quiet but purposeful. I've been looking for you, he said, his voice carrying a hint of concern. I needed a moment, Solara replied. She glanced at him, her expression unreadable. We've accomplished so much, but I can't help wondering what comes next. Tom stepped closer, resting his hands on the railing. That's the thing about progress, it always leads to more questions. But we're ready for them. You've proven that. Solara gave a faint smile. We've proven that. I couldn't have done this without you and Eric. And you won't have to, Tom said, his tone steady. We're in this together. Eric appeared behind them carrying a small datapad. Well, it's official. Our next stop is Terracera, he announced, reading from the screen. The council just transmitted their approval. We've got the green light to start setting up the new site. Solara turned toward him. Terracera. It's an entirely new frontier for both of our peoples. I've only read about it in reports. It's more rugged than Zalera, but the potential there is incredible, Eric said. If this project works as well there as it has here, it's going to change everything. Tom looked at Solara. You're ready for this, aren't you? She hesitated for just a moment before nodding. I think so. It's daunting, but it's also exciting. Eric grinned. That's the spirit. We've come this far, we're not stopping now. The three of them stood together, looking out at the stars, the silence between them filled with anticipation. They were leaving behind the city where it all began, venturing into the unknown, but they weren't doing it alone. As the transport vessel prepared for departure, Solara reflected on the journey they had taken to reach this point. The initial mistrust, the hard-earned cooperation, and the growing sense of mutual respect had led them to a moment that felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. Tom and Eric's presence had not only changed the course of her career but also altered how she saw the world. She had grown to admire their determination, their willingness to adapt, and their unwavering support. In return, they had come to value her perspective and dedication, recognizing the strength in their differences. Terracera won't know what hit it, Eric said with a playful smirk as they headed toward the transport bay. Let's hope it's ready for us, Solara replied, her tone lightening. Tom chuckled. Ready or not, here we come. The three of them boarded the vessel, their shared purpose unshaken. As the ship lifted off, leaving Solara behind, they looked ahead to the challenges and opportunities awaiting them. It wasn't just a project or a partnership anymore. It was the start of a new chapter for both their peoples, built on the trust and understanding they had forged together.